February 3, 2026, 10:00 a.m., Caracas, Venezuela. President Maduro stands before television cameras. Behind him, a map of the Caribbean. Red lines mark a massive zone extending 500 miles from Venezuelan coast. It covers critical shipping lanes, approaches to the Panama Canal, international waters used by thousands of vessels annually. Today, Venezuela declares the Bolivarian Economic Protection Zone. All vessels transiting within 500 nautical miles of our coast must register with Venezuelan authorities and pay transit fees. This zone protects our economic interests and ensures regional stability. He pauses for effect, eyes on the camera. Any vessel refusing to comply will be detained or sunk. We have the military capability to enforce this zone. We will defend Venezuelan sovereignty. The declaration is insane, illegal under international law, but Maduro is desperate. His economy is collapsing. He needs revenue. He's trying to tax international shipping, extort money from vessels using Caribbean waters. The problem? Those waters aren't Venezuelan. They're international, and the United States won't tolerate a dictator blocking critical trade routes. Navy warfare reveals how America responded with 3 carrier strike groups, and why Venezuela's exclusion zone lasted exactly 48 hours. The immediate reaction is shock. February 3, 11:00 a.m., international shipping companies receive the notification. Effective immediately, all vessels transiting the Bolivarian Economic Protection Zone must register with Venezuelan Maritime Authority and pay transit fees based on vessel tonnage. Fees range from $50,000 to $500,000 per transit. Failure to comply will result in detention. The shipping industry is outraged. This is piracy. Venezuela has no authority over international waters. We won't pay. But Venezuela threatens force. Our Navy and Air Force will patrol the zone. Non-compliant vessels will be boarded. Cargo will be seized. Crews will be arrested. Some shipping companies decide to avoid the area entirely, reroute around the Caribbean, add thousands of miles to their journeys. Others decide to risk it, transit without paying, hope Venezuela is bluffing. Venezuela isn't bluffing. February 4th, 6:30 a.m., Venezuelan Navy intercepts first vessel. MV Nordic Trader, Norwegian-flagged container ship, 50,000 tons, carrying electronics from Asia to Miami. Value, $180 million. The ship is 300 miles from Venezuelan coast, deep in international waters, completely legal position. 4 Venezuelan patrol boats approach, armed, aggressive. They radio. Nordic Trader, you are in Venezuelan Economic Protection Zone without authorization. Stop your engines and prepare for boarding. The Norwegian captain refuses. Negative. We are in international waters. We will not stop. The Venezuelan boats fire warning shots. Machine gun bursts across the bow. The captain has no choice. He stops. Venezuelan armed forces board. Detain the crew. Seize the ship. The cargo is ransacked. $8 million in electronics are confiscated. The ship is held for 3 days, released only after the shipping company pays $300,000 transit fee plus $500,000 fine for non-compliance. This is maritime extortion, piracy with government backing. February 5th, more vessels are intercepted. 3 more ships stopped. German tanker, Japanese car carrier, Brazilian bulk freighter, all in international waters, all forced to pay. Total extorted, $1.2 million in 24 hours. If this continues, Venezuela could extract hundreds of millions annually from shipping traffic, maybe billions. It's a lucrative scam, if they can enforce it. They can't, because the United States won't allow it. February 5th, 2 p.m., White House emergency meeting. Mr. President, Venezuela is illegally stopping ships in international waters. They're claiming a 500-mile exclusion zone. They're extorting shipping companies. This affects $400 billion in annual trade. The Panama Canal approaches are compromised. This is unacceptable. The president reviews the map. The red zone covers half the Caribbean. Critical shipping lanes. Commercial routes used by American and international vessels. If Venezuela can block these waters, Global trade is disrupted. What are our options? We can declare the zone invalid and send the Navy to enforce freedom of navigation. If Venezuelan forces try to stop our ships, we remove them from the equation. The president doesn't hesitate. Do it. Get 3 carrier strike groups into that zone. Make it clear. These are international waters. Venezuela has no authority. Any Venezuelan vessel trying to stop commercial shipping gets sunk. Comment if you'd send 3 carrier groups to break an illegal blockade. February 6th, 6 a.m. Deployment orders issued. USS Gerald R. Ford, currently in the Atlantic, proceed to Caribbean, ETA 36 hours. USS George Washington, operating near Puerto Rico, proceed to Venezuelan waters, ETA 24 hours. USS Harry S. Truman, transit from Norfolk, ETA 48 hours. 3 carrier strike groups, 33 warships total, 9 Ticonderoga-class cruisers, 15 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, 3 Virginia-class submarines, 3 supply ships, plus the 3 carriers themselves. This is the largest U.S. naval deployment in the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The message is unmistakable. The zone is void. International waters remain open. Venezuela's claim is rejected with overwhelming force. February 7th, 8:08 a.m. President addresses the nation. My fellow Americans, Venezuela has attempted to close international waters to commercial shipping. They claim a 500-mile exclusion zone. They're extorting shipping companies, threatening to sink vessels that don't pay. This is piracy. This is illegal. This will not stand. The president displays the map, shows Venezuela's claimed zone, shows the critical shipping lanes it blocks. Over $400 billion in annual trade transits these waters, goods flowing to and from the Panama Canal, commerce that supports American jobs and the global economy. One dictator cannot close these waters for personal profit. The announcement continues. Effective immediately, the United States Navy is establishing freedom of navigation operations in the Caribbean. 3 carrier strike groups are deploying. Any Venezuelan vessel attempting to stop commercial shipping will be removed, forcefully if necessary. These are international waters. They will remain open. February 7th, 11 a.m. Venezuela's response. Maduro appears defiant. The North American empire threatens us again. They cannot intimidate Venezuela. We will defend our economic protection zone. Our Navy will enforce our rights. But he knows the truth. His Navy consists of 6 frigates, 4 corvettes, and 12 patrol boats. Aging, poorly maintained. No match for 3 U.S. carrier strike groups. Still, he orders them to sea. Patrol the zone, show presence. If American warships enter, shadow them. Don't engage unless fired upon, but don't back down. It's a suicide mission, but Maduro needs to save face domestically. Show his military is doing something. February 8th, 2 p.m. USS George Washington enters the exclusion zone. The carrier crosses the 500-mile line, deliberately, publicly, accompanied by 4 destroyers and 2 cruisers. FA-18 Super Hornets fly combat air patrol overhead. The message, we're here, we're not leaving, try to stop us. Venezuelan radar tracks the strike group. The Navy dispatches 2 frigates to intercept, or at least observe. Show they're defending the zone. February 8th, 3:17 p.m. Venezuelan frigates approach USS George Washington. 2 Lupo-class frigates, built by Italy in the 1980s, 2,500 tons each, armed with automatic anti-ship missiles and 127mm guns. They're 40 years old but still functional. The frigates position themselves 15 miles from the carrier, close enough to monitor, far enough to avoid immediate threat. They radio, American warship, you are in Venezuelan economic protection zone without authorization. You must leave immediately. The carrier's response is calm, professional. Venezuelan vessels, we are operating in international waters as permitted by international law. We have no intention of leaving. We recommend you maintain safe distance and avoid any hostile actions. The frigates hold position, shadowing the carrier, reporting to Caracas, waiting for orders. The standoff begins. Wait for the moment Venezuelan frigate locks weapons radar. It almost triggers combat. February 8th, 4:03 p.m. Venezuelan frigate activates fire control radar. One of the Lupo-class frigates switches from search radar to fire control, the targeting radar for their automatic anti-ship missiles. It locks onto USS George Washington. The signal is unmistakable. Weapons lock. On the carrier, alarm sound. Missile lock. Venezuelan frigate has weapons lock. The carrier's defensive systems activate automatically. Electronic warfare. Chaff launchers ready. Close-in weapon systems tracking the frigate. If that Venezuelan frigate launches missiles, the carrier's defenses will engage them, and the frigate will be sunk seconds later. The destroyer USS Mustin, escorting the carrier, takes action. The captain radios the Venezuelan frigate. Voice is calm but firm. Venezuelan vessel, you have weapons lock on a U.S. Navy carrier. Break lock immediately, or we will consider it a hostile act and respond with force. You have 30 seconds. The tension is extreme. One wrong move, one nervous weapons officer, one miscommunication. War. 20 seconds. The Venezuelan frigate maintains lock. Why? Maybe the captain is waiting for orders from Caracas. Maybe he's trying to demonstrate resolve. Maybe he doesn't realize how close he is to being destroyed. 10 seconds. USS Mustin's fire control radar locks the Venezuelan frigate. The destroyer's Harpoon anti-ship missiles are targeted, ready to launch. 5 seconds. The Venezuelan frigate breaks lock. The targeting radar switches off. Crisis averted. Barely. The destroyer captain radios again. Venezuelan vessel, if you activate fire control radar again, we will consider it an attack and respond accordingly. Maintain search radar only. Keep safe distance. Acknowledge. After a long pause, the Venezuelan captain responds. Acknowledged. We will maintain search radar only. The confrontation de-escalates, but everyone knows how close they came to combat. Seconds away from missiles launching, from ships sinking, from sailors dying. February 8th, 5 p.m. Maduro receives the report. His frigates locked weapons radar on an American carrier. The U.S. Navy nearly sank them. Only Venezuelan captain's decision to break lock prevented combat. Maduro's military advisors are blunt. Sir, we cannot fight 3 American carrier strike groups. If shooting starts, our Navy is destroyed in minutes. All of it. Every ship. What about shore-based missiles? Anti-ship weapons? They have range, but American aircraft would strike them immediately. We'd get one salvo. Maybe. Then our coastal defenses are eliminated. Maduro understands. His exclusion zone is militarily unenforceable. He's trying to bluff with a weak hand, and the Americans called his bluff with 3 carrier strike groups. Who wins this standoff? A. U.S. Navy. B. Venezuelan Navy. C. Negotiated compromise? Vote below. February 9th, 8 a.m. USS Gerald R. Ford and USS Harry S. Truman arrive. Now all 3 carrier strike groups are on station. 33 American warships positioned throughout the exclusion zone. They're operating freely, escorting commercial vessels, demonstrating that Venezuela's claim is void. Commercial shipping resumes immediately. Container ships, tankers, bulk carriers. They transit without paying Venezuelan fees, without stopping for Venezuelan inspection, protected by U.S. Navy presence. Any Venezuelan patrol boat that approaches gets intercepted by American destroyers. Turn back. These are international waters. You have no authority here. The Venezuelan boats comply. They have no choice. Confronting American destroyers means death. February 9th, 10 a.m. Venezuela backs down. Maduro appears on television. He looks defeated. In the interest of regional peace and stability, Venezuela is temporarily suspending enforcement of the Bolivarian Economic Protection Zone. We will engage in diplomatic consultations with international partners to establish recognized maritime boundaries. Translation: we surrender. The zone is canceled. The U.S. Navy proved we can't enforce it. We're giving up. The exclusion zone lasted exactly 6 days, from announcement to cancellation. The moment 3 American carrier strike groups arrived, it was over. February 10th, commercial shipping celebrates. The shipping industry breathes a sigh of relief. No more Venezuelan extortion. No more illegal detentions. No more $500,000 transit fees. International waters are open again. Trade flows normally. The cost of the crisis: $12 million in fees paid by ships intercepted before U.S. Navy arrived. Some shipping companies demand refunds. Venezuela refuses. It keeps the money. Small consolation for a humiliating defeat. February 12th. Strategic assessment. Navy warfare analyzes the operation. Venezuela's exclusion zone was doomed from the start. 1. International law was clear. Nations can't claim 500-mile zones in international waters. The 200-mile exclusive economic zone is the legal maximum. Venezuela's 500-mile claim had no legal foundation. 2. Military capability was insufficient. Venezuela's Navy couldn't enforce the zone against commercial shipping, much less against U.S. Navy carrier strike groups. The power disparity was absurd. 3. Economic impact was too large. $400 billion in annual trade uses those waters. Major economies wouldn't tolerate blockage. The international response would be overwhelming. 4. American response was inevitable. The U.S. has maintained freedom of navigation for centuries. Caribbean waters are critical to American commerce. Any attempt to block them triggers immediate military response. 5. Carrier strike groups are decisive. 3 carriers in theater created overwhelming local superiority. Venezuela had no counter, no options, only surrender. Justified U.S. response or overreaction. Comment J for justified, O for overreaction. February 15th. Venezuela's military humiliation. The confrontation exposed Venezuelan military weakness. Their navy shadowed American carriers for 3 days, accomplished nothing. When they tried locking weapons radar, they were seconds from annihilation. Venezuelan military leadership is furious, not at Americans, at Maduro. You ordered us to enforce an impossible zone, to confront a force that could destroy us instantly. You humiliated us, made us look incompetent. The grumbling grows. Talk of coup intensifies. Officers feel betrayed. Used for political theater with no chance of success. February 20th. Economic consequences. The failed zone cost Venezuela credibility. International companies that might have invested won't touch the country. They tried to extort shipping. They can't be trusted. Foreign aid decreases. Diplomatic isolation deepens. The country that was already struggling economically just made things worse. Maduro's gambit backfired completely. March 2026. Internal pressure mounts. Protests in Caracas. Maduro embarrassed Venezuela, challenged America and lost. He's incompetent. The military won't suppress protests anymore. They're as angry as civilians. Some units join the protests. This is the beginning of the end for Maduro's regime. April 2026, Maduro is removed. Not by Americans, by his own military. A general's junta takes power. First act, formally rescind the exclusion zone declaration. Second act, apologize to shipping companies. Return the $12 million in extorted fees. Third act, begin negotiations with the United States. We want normal relations. No more confrontation, no more illegal claims. Help us rebuild. The U.S. is cautiously willing. Keeps sanctions in place for now, but opens dialogue. If Venezuela conducts free elections and respects international law, everything can change. May 2026, lessons learned. The exclusion zone crisis taught multiple lessons. 1. You can't bluff against overwhelming force. Venezuela claimed a zone they couldn't enforce. America called the bluff with 3 carrier strike groups. Game over. 2. International waters are defended vigorously. Freedom of navigation is a cornerstone of global commerce. The U.S. Navy will enforce it regardless of cost. 3. Carrier strike groups project decisive power. 3 carriers created local superiority so complete that Venezuela couldn't even consider resistance. This is what sea control looks like. 4. Economic desperation leads to bad decisions. Maduro tried to tax international shipping because his economy was collapsing. It was doomed to fail and accelerated his regime's collapse. 5. Humiliation triggers political change. The military couldn't accept being exposed as powerless. Public couldn't accept international embarrassment. Maduro's overreach cost him power. June 2026. Caribbean returns to normal. All three carrier strike groups depart. USS Gerald R. Ford returns to the Atlantic. USS George Washington resumes operations near Puerto Rico. USS Harry S. Truman heads back to Norfolk. Commercial shipping transits freely. No Venezuelan interference. No illegal fees. No extortion. The crisis is over. International order is restored. July 2026. Venezuela's future. The military junta schedules elections for December 2026. International observers are invited. Democratic opposition is allowed to campaign. There's hope for real change. The exclusion zone disaster accelerated Venezuela's transition. Maduro's final overreach. The miscalculation that ended his regime. Sometimes losing spectacularly creates opportunity for something better. August 2026. Naval power demonstrated. The Pentagon studies the operation. Rapid deployment of 3 carrier strike groups successfully deterred armed conflict and restored international law. 0 casualties. 0 shots fired in anger. Perfect demonstration of sea power. The operation becomes a case study. How to use overwhelming force to prevent war rather than fight it. How carrier presence alone changes adversary calculations. Drop your prediction. Will any nation try this again? Or is the lesson permanent? Navy warfare wants your analysis. September 2026. Shipping industry reflection. Lloyd's of London publishes analysis. The Venezuelan exclusion zone crisis demonstrated the importance of naval power in protecting global commerce. Without U.S. Navy intervention, illegal zones could proliferate. Piracy would increase. Trade would suffer. Insurance rates in the Caribbean remain low. Because everyone knows the U.S. Navy protects these waters, any threat is met with overwhelming response. That certainty keeps commerce flowing. October 2026. 1 year later preparations. Venezuela prepares for elections. The junta has kept its promise. Democratic process is allowed. Opposition candidates campaign freely. International observers monitor. The exclusion zone is historical footnote. A 6-day crisis that exposed weakness and triggered change. Nobody talks about it anymore. Too embarrassing. November 2026. Final assessment. The Bolivarian Economic Protection Zone was the shortest-lived maritime claim in modern history. Announced February 3rd. Cancelled February 9th. 6 days of existence. 3 days of actual confrontation. 0 successful enforcement actions. Venezuela tried to close international waters, extract hundreds of millions from shipping. The United States deployed 3 carrier strike groups. Venezuela surrendered immediately. The operation cost the U.S. Navy approximately $45 million in fuel, maintenance, and operations for the 3 strike groups, but it protected $400 billion in annual trade. The return on investment was astronomical. December 2026. Democratic elections. Venezuela votes. Turnout is high. The opposition wins. Democratic government takes power. The military junta transitions peacefully. Venezuela begins rebuilding. The new president's first international trip, Washington, D.C., to thank the United States. Your Navy's actions last February helped trigger the changes that brought democracy. We're grateful. The president responds. We defended international law and freedom of navigation. That we helped bring democratic change to Venezuela is a welcome bonus. This is what Navy warfare covers. The confrontations won without fighting. The threats defeated through presence. The crises resolved when overwhelming force makes resistance futile. February 3rd to 9th, 2026. Venezuela declared illegal 500-mile exclusion zone. Tried to extort international shipping. The United States deployed 3 carrier strike groups, 33 warships. Venezuela surrendered in 6 days. 0 shots fired in combat. 0 casualties. Perfect demonstration of naval power. International waters remained open. Commerce continued. The illegal zone died. Subscribe to Navy Warfare, because the most effective military operations are the ones that never become battles. The presence that prevents conflict. The force that's so overwhelming that resistance is unthinkable. 3 carrier strike groups ended the crisis before it became a war. That's how you defend freedom of navigation. That's how you protect global commerce. That's American sea power. Real confrontation, real force projection, real deterrence. Navy warfare.